In the werewolf world, there are 3 unforgivable acts: betraying your pack, killing your own blood, and rejecting your fated mate in front of the entire realm. Thea Winters suffered the 3rd. She was the runt of Moonvale, small, quiet, always limping a step behind the others. Her leg never healed right, but her heart did its best to keep up. The kitchen was her safe place, the scent of bread her only comfort, the stars her only friends. And still, the moon goddess bound her fate to Rowan Ashford, the pack's golden heir, perfect smile, perfect future, and a soul colder than winter. Under the harvest moon, 12 packs gathered around the sacred fire. White robes, drums. The moon priestess calling names of fated pairs blessed by the goddess herself. When she said, Rowan Ashford, Thea Winters, the world stopped. He looked at her, not with love, not even with pity, but disgust. And before hundreds of wolves, he spoke the words that shattered her life. I reject you, Thea Winters. You're unworthy to bear my mark, unworthy of an alpha. Thea's knees hit the dirt. The bond tore through her like a storm, leaving her gasping for air as laughter and whispers swirled around her. Her mother screamed her name, but the sound felt miles away. And just when the world decided she was nothing, something ancient woke. From the shadows stepped Kael Thorne, the rogue king. A wolf no pack could tame, no council could command. He hadn't taken a mate in 200 years because no wolf had ever survived his power. Until now, when he saw Thea broken in that circle, something in him snapped. He walked through the crowd, every step a warning, lifted her into his arms, and growled 4 words that froze every alpha where they stood. She's mine now. Try me. This is the story of a wolf the world threw away, and the feral king who would burn the realm to keep her. Before we watch Thea rise from the ashes, I need you to do something for me. Drop your location in the comments. I want to know where in the world the Alpha's Romance Library pack is watching from. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button, because this is where rejected hearts become crowned queens. Now, let's begin. Thea Winters had learned to walk carefully, not because of her limp, but because every step in Moonvale Pack felt like walking through judgment. Eyes always followed her, pity in some, disgust in most. To them, she wasn't Thea, daughter of Lydia the seamstress. She was the runt. The weak link, the wolf who couldn't run. Her left leg dragged just enough to make noise on stone floors. Scrape, step, scrape. Even that sound became part of her shame. The pack pups used to mimic it when she passed, laughing like it was a game. Careful, the cripple wolf is coming. They'd giggle, their mothers pretending not to hear. And every time, Thea smiled like it didn't hurt. She'd mastered that smile, the one that hid everything. Her father had died when she was 5, defending the borders from rogues. She remembered him only in fragments, the smell of pine smoke, his deep laugh, the warmth of his hands lifting her onto his shoulders. After he fell, there was no hero's welcome. The pack didn't honor the dead long if their family was weak. Lydia, her mother, worked double shifts sewing ceremonial robes to survive. Thea helped, threading needles until her fingers blistered. Strength was everything in Moonvale. If you couldn't fight, shift, or breed strong heirs, you were invisible. Omegas bowed their heads, warriors walked tall, and alphas ruled like gods. Somewhere between those ranks, Thea existed, a ghost among wolves who forgot ghosts had teeth. She worked in the kitchens now, serving food she'd never be invited to eat. The air always smelled of roasted meat and herbs, but to her, it tasted like humiliation. When the pack feasted after hunts, she stayed in the back, washing dishes until her hands wrinkled from the water. It was safer there. Wolves didn't mock what they couldn't see. Only one person treated her like more than a shadow. Dorian, the old Omega cook. His back was bent, his beard streaked white, his voice always low. like a lullaby that somehow made the world quieter. He'd slide her extra bread when no one was watching and grumble, "You can't starve the spirit out of a wolf, no matter how they try." Thea always smiled. "They'd sure like to prove you wrong." Dorian's eyes softened. Let him try. He was the only one who called her Little Wolf, a nickname that didn't sound cruel when he said it. Then, 3 months ago, everything changed. It was the summer solstice gathering. Bonfires, drums, laughter. Every unmated wolf of age had gathered to celebrate the season when bonds revealed themselves. Thea had come only to serve wine, not to hope. She'd told herself the goddess wouldn't waste a mate bond on someone like her. She was wrong. It happened so suddenly. One moment she was carrying a tray of cups, the next her chest burned like silver fire. The air shifted, hot, electric. Her wolf, Ember, howled inside her mind. Mate. Thea froze. Her eyes found Rowan Ashford across the bonfire, tall, broad-shouldered, hair like sunlight. His expression when he felt the bond was not joy. It was horror. His lips parted just enough to whisper, "No." Then he turned away, leaving her standing there with the bond glowing between them like a curse. That night she didn't sleep. For weeks she tried to speak to him, just once, to understand. But every time she got close, he pretended she didn't exist. When she finally confronted him, his words were daggers. "Whatever you think you felt, it's wrong. I don't have a mate." She almost believed him. But bonds didn't lie. She felt it, the pulse between them, faint but alive. It was her hope and her torment. Then came Dahlia Crane, Rowan's longtime lover, the beta's daughter, flawless and cruel. She made sure Thea understood her place. "You? His mate?" Dahlia's laughter was sharp enough to cut. "Maybe in another life, one where wolves marry their broken toys." From then on, the bullying turned vicious. A pot of boiling soup accidentally spilled onto Thea's hand. A stairway accidentally left slick. Every accident smelled like Dahlia's perfume. And every time, Thea told herself it didn't matter. Because soon, at the grand mating ceremony, the truth would come out. Rowan wouldn't be able to deny what the goddess herself had chosen. That's what her mother said, whispering through tired lips as she hemmed Thea's simple white dress. "He'll see reason, sweetheart. When the moon priestess calls your bond, he'll have no choice but to accept it. The goddess doesn't make mistakes." Thea smiled for her mother's sake, but inside she felt hollow. The dress was beautiful, plain cotton, hand-stitched with trembling hope. Lydia kissed her forehead that night and whispered, "Tomorrow, everything changes." Thea didn't know her mother was right. It would change, just not the way either of them dreamed. When dawn came, the entire pack moved toward the sacred grove. Thea walked with them, heart thundering against her ribs. Every step felt heavier than the last. Her leg ached, but she kept her chin high. She'd learned that dignity was sometimes the only armor a broken wolf could afford. The path wound through silver-barked trees until the clearing opened before her. Torches, stones, and the great bonfire already roaring. Wolves from 12 packs gathered in perfect lines, all glowing with expectation. The air shimmered with magic and moonlight, and somewhere in that crowd, Rowan Ashford stood, waiting to decide her fate. She didn't know it yet, but this night would end with her blood on the earth, her bond in ruins, and a stranger with mismatched eyes stepping from the darkness to claim what the world had thrown away. For now she adjusted the hem of her white dress, took one last shaky breath, and whispered to herself, "Please, goddess, let this be mercy." The drums began to beat. The ceremony had started. The sacred grove shimmered under the full moon, like a cathedral carved by the goddess herself. Silver light spilled over the stones, catching on the white robes of hundreds of wolves gathered in perfect silence. Thea stood among them, a single tremor of breath in a sea of certainty. Her mother's dress clung softly to her frame, humble and handmade, a thread of love sewn into every seam. It was the only thing about this night that felt safe. Her heart pounded hard enough that she thought everyone could hear it. Her leg ached. The limp was worse when she was nervous. Still, she forced herself to stand tall. Dorian's words echoed in her memory. "Head high, little one. They can't see weakness unless you show it." She lifted her chin. All around her, wolves glowed in anticipation. Some clasped hands, already sensing the pull of their fated mates. Others whispered prayers to the moon goddess, eyes fixed on the ancient bonfire that burned blue at its heart. The moon priestess, old, blind, her hair silver as frost, stood before the flames, staff glowing faintly. "The goddess sees all bonds," she intoned. "She binds, she blesses, she breaks what was never meant to be. Step forward when your name is called, and may the moon reveal the truth written in your blood." Each pairing felt like a small miracle, a murmur of joy, an embrace, a cheer. Thea tried to smile, but every new couple was another reminder that she stood alone. Dahlia Crane glided past her like a queen, white silk trailing in the dirt. When she leaned close, her whisper dripped poison. "Enjoy the show, Limper. It's the last time you'll stand with alphas." Thea said nothing. Her hands clenched around her dress. She prayed for patience, for courage, anything but tears. Then, without warning, the priestess went still. The staff stopped glowing. The air shifted, cold and electric. "Rowan Ashford, son of Tobias," she said. "Thea Winters, daughter of the fallen. Step forward." Thea's breath caught. Every head turned. Rowan stood across the circle, a golden figure framed by moonlight. He didn't move. His jaw clenched, his hands curled into fists. Thea waited for him to step forward. He didn't. "The goddess has chosen," the priestess said again, louder this time, her blind eyes fixed somewhere between them. "Do not make her wait." Thea's knees wobbled. Her mother's soft voice cut through the noise. "Go, sweetheart, go." So she did. Each step was agony. Not just from her leg, but from the weight of hundreds of stairs pressing into her back. The ground felt uneven. The air too thin. When she reached the circle, she could barely breathe. The priestess raised her staff. "Do you, Rowan Ashford, accept the sacred bond laid upon you by the moon goddess?" The pause stretched so long that whispers began to ripple through the crowd. Thea looked at him. Really looked. The boy she'd once thought beautiful now looked like something carved from stone. His blue eyes held no warmth, only disgust. "I do not." His voice was loud, clear, final. The grove froze. Rowan's father hissed, "Son, this is not the time." But Rowan kept going. "I reject her." The words struck harder than any blow. Thea felt the world tilt. The silver thread inside her heart, her bond snapped. Not quietly. It ripped, a tearing deep inside her chest. Pain shot through every nerve, hot, white, endless. She gasped, dropped to her knees, clutching her heart as if she could hold the pieces together. Rowan's voice didn't waver. "She is weak, broken. A cripple unfit to carry an alpha's mark. I, Rowan Ashford, reject this bond and the disgrace it brings to my bloodline." A murmur of shock swept through the packs. Some wolves turned away. Others watched like it was a show. Thea's vision blurred. Her body trembled. She felt warmth on her lips and realized it was blood. Her mother screamed her name. Thea tried to reach out, but her arm felt too heavy. Through the haze, she saw Dahlia smirk, her eyes glittering with victory. Then Rowan did something worse than rejection. He turned to Dahlia, pulled her close, and kissed her in front of everyone. The crowd gasped. Thea's stomach turned. "This is the woman worthy of me," he said. "Strong, whole, my true choice." It was too much. The bond's remains tore through her soul, and Thea crumpled. Her mother rushed forward, falling to her knees. gathering her daughter's limp body in her arms. "Stay with me, baby, please." Healers pushed through the crowd, muttering about trauma and spiritual shock. But deep down, everyone knew, rejections this public rarely ended with breath still in the chest. Thea's heartbeat faltered. Her world dimmed to a thin ribbon of sound. Her mother sobbing, the priestess whispering a prayer. Then, a new sound. A growl. Low. Not from pain. From authority. It rolled through the grove like thunder underfoot. Wolves froze mid-step. Even the priestess turned her head. The growl came again, deeper, closer. From the shadows at the edge of the grove, a figure emerged. Tall, broad, every movement controlled, deliberate. Moonlight slid over black leather, scars, and eyes that gleamed two colors, one amber, one frost blue. The rogue king, Kael Thorne. He wasn't supposed to be here. Rogues never were. Yet here he stood, watching the girl in the dirt. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Kael walked through the crowd without a word. Alphas stepped aside. Warriors lowered their heads. He knelt beside Thea, looked at the blood on her face, and something in his eyes softened, just enough to be dangerous. He lifted her as if she weighed nothing, turned to the crowd, and said quietly, "She's mine now." No one moved. Then, in a voice that could split mountains, "Try me." The grove fell silent. The fire hissed, and every wolf there understood something ancient had just changed its allegiance. Thea Winters had been rejected, humiliated, left to die. But the night wasn't over. It was just beginning. The grove was still humming with the echo of his words. "She's mine now." No one dared to breathe. No one dared to move. The only sound was the crackle of the bonfire and the trembling heartbeat of the girl in his arms. Kael Thorne stood at the center of the circle, like a living shadow carved from the night itself. His hair fell in black waves over his shoulders, his jaw set in quiet rage. One of his eyes burned gold, the other ice blue, a mark of the ancient bloodline the packs whispered about, but never spoke aloud. His presence didn't just fill the grove, it owned it. Rowan was the first to break the silence. "Put her down!" he demanded, though his voice shook around the edges. "You have no right to touch her." Kael turned his head slightly, just enough for Rowan to see the predator behind those mismatched eyes. "Then come and take her." The challenge was quiet, deadly. Rowan froze. Even his father, Alpha Tobias, didn't move. Every instinct screamed at them to back down. This was the rogue king, the feral alpha who'd slaughtered 12 rivals and burned a council fortress to the ground when they tried to leash him. A wolf who answered to no laws, no gods, no one. The moon priestess spoke next, her voice trembling like wind through hollow bone. "Kael Thorne," she whispered, "you have crossed sacred ground, uninvited." Kael's gaze never left Thea. "Then the goddess invited me herself," he said, "because she's the one who bound this girl's life to mine." A ripple of shock spread through the crowd. Thea stirred faintly, her head resting against his chest. Her skin was cold, her breathing shallow. She didn't see the faces watching her. Wolves who'd once laughed now gaping in disbelief. The priestess raised her staff. "A second bond? That is not possible." Her words stopped. She gasped, staff glowing faint silver. The energy between Kael and Thea shimmered, thin threads of light stretching between them, fragile yet unmistakable. The crowd gasped. Even the fire seemed to bend toward them. "It cannot be," the priestess whispered. "And yet it is." Kyle's lips curved, not in triumph, but in something darker. "Then you understand. She's under my protection now." Alpha Tobias took a step forward, forcing his voice into authority. "You can't just claim her. She belongs to Moonvale. Kael's eyes flashed. She belonged to a wolf who left her bleeding in the dirt. That claim is gone. Rowan snarled, trying to recover his pride. You don't know what you're getting into. She's weak. She'll never bear a mark, never shift right. She's nothing. Kael's gaze slid to him. Slow, deliberate, merciless. Funny, he said quietly. For someone who calls her nothing, you seem very afraid of me taking her. The air itself seemed to tighten. Wolves around the circle lowered their heads, submitting without thinking. Rowan's pride flickered, then broke under the weight of that stare. He stepped back. The moon priestess's voice came again, reverent this time. It happens once in an age, she murmured. When rejection breaks the soul, the goddess may weave a new thread, a bond born not of destiny, but of choice, the feral and the fallen. Kael looked down at the girl in his arms. Her pale lashes fluttered. A faint sound escaped her lips, somewhere between a whimper and a sigh. Rest, he murmured. You've suffered enough. He turned and began to walk out of the circle. No one stopped him. Not the priestess. Not Tobias. Not even Rowan, whose fury now twisted into something close to fear. The crowd parted in silence, every wolf stepping back as he passed. Thea Winters, Thea's mother, reached for him as he passed. Please, will she live? Kael paused. His voice softened, barely audible. If I can help it? Yes. Then he carried her away, boots crunching over gravel, disappearing into the line of trees like the night itself had come to reclaim what daylight had rejected. Outside the grove, a truck waited. A massive black machine that looked like it had survived a war. He laid Thea gently in the passenger seat, adjusting her head so she could breathe easier. For a moment, he just watched her. Her skin was pale as moonlight. Her hair stuck to her cheeks, streaked with dirt and blood. Even broken, there was something untamed about her. Something the world had tried to crush, but couldn't quite erase. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, fingers surprisingly careful for hands that had built and destroyed empires. What did they do to you, little wolf? He whispered. His wolf, havoc stirred in his mind, a massive presence with teeth and fury. Mate, Kael's jaw tightened. No. Mate, the voice growled again. Louder this time, ancient, absolute. Kael gripped the steering wheel, every muscle in his body tense. For 200 years he'd sworn off the bond. Watched wolves lose themselves to weakness, to heartbreak, to need. He'd told himself he didn't have that flaw. But the girl beside him wasn't weakness. She was something else, something that made his chest ache in ways battle never had. He started the engine. It rumbled like thunder as he drove through the forest, the headlights slicing through the dark. Behind him, the grove faded to nothing but a faint glow of firelight. In the distance, wolves howled, a sound of confusion, fear, and prophecy. By the time the sun rose, every pack across the realm would hear the news. The rogue king had claimed a mate, and not just any mate, the rejected one. Thea woke to silence. Not the silence of peace. This was the heavy kind, the kind that hums against your skin. A fire crackled somewhere nearby, its soft rhythm the only thing convincing her she was still alive. When she opened her eyes, she wasn't in the sacred grove anymore. The air smelled of pine and smoke, not incense and blood. The ceiling above her was made of rough timber, beams blackened by age. Animal pelts covered the walls, weapons glinted where the firelight touched them. Knives, blades, silver-tipped arrows. A cabin, deep in the northern wastes. Her body ached in ways she couldn't name. Her throat was dry, her chest tight, and her leg throbbed as though someone had poured molten lead through the bone. When she tried to sit up, a sharp pain ripped through her ribs. She gasped, hands clutching the fur blanket around her. Memory hit her like a wave. The ceremony. The rejection. Rowan's voice cutting through her soul. The kiss. The laughter. Then, those eyes. One amber, one blue. A growl that shook the world. Panic flared. She shoved the blanket away, tried to stand, and collapsed. The floor came up fast, but before she could hit it, strong hands caught her. "Easy," a low voice said. It was deep, rough-edged, like gravel rolled through smoke. She blinked up and saw him. Kael Thorne. He wasn't the phantom from the ceremony now. He was real. Flesh, scars, and quiet danger. His hair was unbound, falling across his shoulders. The firelight painted him in gold and shadow. Bare-chested, he looked like a relic carved for war. Every inch of him told a story written in violence, yet his touch was steady, careful. "You shouldn't be on your feet," he said. She flinched away, pressing herself against the bedpost. Where am I?" He didn't move closer. "Blood Moon territory. My land. You're safe." "Safe." The word sounded foreign in his mouth. "You kidnapped me." Her voice cracked. "I saved you," he said simply. "That rejection nearly killed you. You were bleeding from every sense a wolf has." She wanted to argue, but the truth sat heavy between them. Her body was proof. Thea looked down. Fresh bandages wrapped her wrists and leg, clean and tight. Someone had changed her clothes into a large cotton shirt that smelled faintly of cedar. "Why?" she whispered. Kael studied her for a long moment, his mismatched eyes unreadable. "Because the moon goddess decided I'm bound to you." She laughed once, bitter and small. "You're joking." His expression didn't change. "I don't joke." He raised his hand, palm up. Silver light flickered between his fingers. Threads of energy, fine as a spider silk, connecting him to her. The same glow shimmered faintly at her wrist. Thea stared, breath catching. "That's not possible. Bonds don't just reappear." "They don't," he said. "Unless the goddess intervenes." Her chest tightened. I just lost my mate. I can't survive another bond. I don't even know you." Kyle's voice softened, a rare crack in his armor. "I'm not asking you to accept it. Not now. Not ever, if that's what you choose. You don't owe me anything." She blinked, startled by the honesty. "Then why bring me here?" He looked toward the window, where dawn was starting to cut through the forest. "Because if I'd left you there, you'd be dead. And I've watched enough wolves die for the mistakes of others." Something in his tone, a quiet grief, made her anger stumble. She sat back on the bed, staring at the fire. They stayed like that for a while. She studied him when she thought he wasn't looking. His scars weren't just on his body. They lived in his stillness, in the way he measured every breath before speaking. Finally, she said, "So, what now?" "You heal," he replied. "When you're strong enough to walk, you can decide what comes next. If you want to leave, I'll let you go." She didn't believe him. Not fully. But part of her wanted to. "What kind of alpha says that?" she asked. "The kind who's tired of forcing things that don't want to stay." He rose, and for the first time she noticed how carefully he moved, as though every motion was a choice. Before leaving, he paused at the door. "There's food on the table. Eat. Sleep. No one here will touch you without your say-so." When he left, the door clicked shut behind him, and the silence returned. But it wasn't the same silence as before. Thea stared at the glowing threads around her wrist until they faded. Her chest ached, but the pain wasn't all from rejection. There was something else. Something strange, almost electric, thrumming in her veins. She lay back down, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand what had happened. She'd been rejected, humiliated, left to die, and now she was alive in the den of the most feared alpha in the realm. Her heart shouldn't have fluttered at the thought. But it did. Outside, the wind whispered through the pines. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, deep, haunting, powerful. Kael. And for reasons she couldn't explain, Thea's wolf, Ember, stirred inside her chest for the first time since the ceremony, and whispered one word. Mate. By the time Thea could stand without falling, the pain had dulled to a steady throb, an echo instead of a scream. The cabin had become familiar in strange ways. The scent of pine smoke, the distant sound of wolves training outside, the rhythm of footsteps that always told her when Kael was near. The northern wastes were nothing like Moonvale. Here, the air tasted wilder, freer. As if the rules of the rest of the realm couldn't reach this far north. Snow blanketed the earth even when the sun shone, and the horizon stretched wide enough to make a wolf feel small again. When Thea finally limped outside, she expected chaos. Rogues, she'd been told, were savages, lawless, violent, untamable. Instead, she found something else entirely. A community. Wolves moved with quiet purpose, building, hunting, laughing. Children chased each other through the snow, their howls soft and playful. Warriors sparred near the tree line, their movements disciplined, precise. Kael's pack, the Blood Moon Rogues. For the first time in her life, Thea saw strength without cruelty. Wolves here weren't perfect. They were scarred, broken in different ways, but none of them hid it. Scars were badges, not shame. Weakness wasn't mocked. It was mended. A tall woman with a scar that ran down the length of her jaw spotted her first. "You're awake," she said, smiling, her voice rough but kind. "I'm Rhea. You must be the miracle everyone's whispering about." Thea blinked. "Miracle?" Rhea shrugged. "We've all got our names. Kael brought you back from the edge. That makes you a legend here." Thea didn't feel like a legend. Her legs still hurt, and the thought of facing anyone made her stomach twist. But Rhea didn't stare at her limp the way Moonvale wolves did. She looked her in the eye, as if the limp wasn't the most interesting thing about her. "Come on," Rhea said, looping an arm around her shoulders. "Let's see how bad that leg really is." Thea protested, but Rhea ignored it, guiding her toward an open space where a few others watched curiously. "We do strength training here," Rhea explained. "Not for vanity, for survival. You want to heal? Move with me." At first, it was humiliating. Every motion burned. Her body resisted, her leg screamed. But Rhea didn't let her quit. "Again," she said. "Slow. Breathe through it." And Thea did. Day after day. Each movement hurt less than the last. Each sunrise found her a little steadier. Somewhere in those endless repetitions, she stopped hating her body. Kael kept his distance. He didn't hover, didn't command. But she always knew when he was near. His shadow would cross the snow during her sessions. Sometimes she'd look up to find him standing a few yards away, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. He never spoke, but she could feel his wolf watching her, protective, restless, tethered to hers. At night, food appeared on her table. Warm stews. Fresh bread. Small things that smelled like comfort. He never delivered them himself, but she knew. Wolves had instincts for that kind of care. Then, one evening, as the sun dipped below the mountains, she found him sitting alone outside the cabin, the light painting his scars gold. He didn't look surprised when she stepped out. "Can't sleep?" he asked quietly. "Can't stop thinking," she answered. He nodded toward the horizon. "That's what the wastes are for. Too quiet to hide from yourself." She hesitated, then sat beside him. For a long moment they said nothing. The wind carried the scent of cedar and snow. Finally, she asked, "Why haven't you taken a mate before me?" He didn't look at her. "Because no one ever stayed. I'm not an easy wolf to love." Thea studied his profile, the hard lines, the eyes that seemed to see too much. "You don't scare me," she said softly. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. That might be the scariest thing anyone's ever said to me. They both laughed, quiet, real. For a few heartbeats, the world felt simple again. Days turned into weeks. Her leg grew stronger, her laughter easier. The pack welcomed her like one of their own. Dante, the quiet wolf with kind eyes, taught her how to track in snow. Tessa, the mother of 3, showed her how to cook over open flame. Every night someone told a story by the fire, and for the first time, Thea didn't sit in the shadows. Then came the full moon. The pack gathered to run beneath the light, their wolves restless and wild. Rhea offered Thea a hand. You ready? Thea's heart pounded. Since the ceremony, she hadn't dared shift. She didn't know if her body could take it, or if she wanted to feel that pain again. But she nodded anyway. The change came slowly this time, not with agony, but with trembling heat. Her bones ached, her breath caught, and then Ember, her small silver wolf, stood where she had been. The snow felt cold against her paws. The air tasted new. For a heartbeat she hesitated. Then the pack howled, and something inside her broke free. She ran. At first her limp made her stumble, but then a shadow moved beside her. A massive black wolf with eyes like twin moons. Havoc. Kael's wolf. He matched her pace, lowering his head as if promising, "You're not alone." She ran until her lungs burned, until the fear melted into laughter in her wolf's mind. The moon rose higher, and for the first time since the rejection, she felt alive. When they returned to camp, panting and spent, Kael shifted back first. Snow clung to his hair, his chest heaving. Thea followed, trembling, her wolf retreating beneath her skin. She was shivering when he stepped closer and draped his cloak around her shoulders. "You kept up," he said quietly. "Barely. Barely's better than broken." Their eyes met, and for a moment the bond between them pulsed, silver light hidden beneath skin. It wasn't the bond of destiny. It was something deeper, something chosen. Thea smiled faintly. "I think I'm starting to believe you." Kael tilted his head. "Believe what?" "That maybe the goddess didn't make a mistake." The wind carried the scent of snow and pine between them, and somewhere deep in the forest, Havoc howled. "This time," Ember answered. "Peace in the northern wastes never lasted long." Thea had been living among the Blood Moon rogues for almost a month, long enough for laughter to feel normal again, long enough for her heart to stop flinching at every sound. But peace, for wolves like them, was a borrowed thing. And every borrowed thing has to be returned. It began one morning when Dante burst into the cabin, snow still clinging to his boots and panic riding his voice. "Kael," he said, breathless. "They're coming." Kael looked up from sharpening his blade, calm even in the storm of news. "Who?" "Moonvale patrols, Rowan's colors. He's calling for her." Dante's eyes flicked toward Thea. Thea froze. For a second her mind refused to understand. "Me?" Kael stood, his shadow falling over her like armor. "He wouldn't dare cross into my land." Dante swallowed. "He's not alone. Rumors say 12 packs have pledged to him." "He's spinning stories. Says you abducted her, that she's being held against her will." Kael's jaw tightened. "A coward hides behind lies when he can't face the truth." Thea's pulse quickened. Her stomach knotted so hard she thought she'd be sick. She could still hear Rowan's voice from that night. "I reject you." She could still feel the tearing of her soul. And now he wanted her back? "Why?" she whispered. "He rejected me. Why would he want me now?" Dante's expression softened. "Word travels fast, Thea. He knows about your lineage now, about your father's bloodline." Her head snapped up. "My father?" Kyle's gaze met hers. "You didn't know?" She shook her head. "He was just my dad, a soldier. He died protecting the pack." Kael stepped closer. Your father wasn't just a soldier. He descended from the original alphas, those who first carried the moon's mark. The blood that runs in you could legitimize any alpha's rule. Thea's chest tightened. So, now I'm useful. The bitterness in her voice burned like poison. Now I'm worth something. Kael reached out, resting a hand on her shoulder. You were worth something long before that. Her throat ached, but the words spilled out before she could stop them. Then why does everyone only see what I can give them? My mother saw hope. Rowan saw shame. And you... She caught herself, eyes flicking away. Kael's hand stayed steady. I see a survivor. She laughed, bitter and wet-eyed. You make it sound noble. It is. His voice dropped low. You survived everything meant to destroy you. That makes you stronger than any alpha I've ever met. The silence between them stretched thin and dangerous. Then Kael did something unexpected. He lifted her chin. Look at me, he said quietly. When she did, she saw it. The bond's faint shimmer beneath his skin, silver and wild. The same glow pulsed faintly at her wrist, syncing with her heartbeat. Thea's breath hitched. You feel it too, he murmured. I don't want to, she whispered. I know. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then Thea said the words she'd been too afraid to speak. He took everything from me. My bond, my dignity, my home. I don't want to hate him forever, but I can't forgive him either. Kyle's thumb brushed a tear from her cheek. Then don't. Let time do the forgiving. You just focus on surviving. The air between them was thick, charged. His scent, cedar, steel, and smoke, wrapped around her, grounding and dangerous all at once. Before she could stop herself, she whispered, Why are you being so kind to me? Kyle's answer came low and raw. Because you make me remember what it's like to care. The world seemed to still. The crackle of the fire faded. The howl of the wind outside turned distant. Thea's heart pounded, her instincts warring between fear and want. Then she leaned in, just slightly, and his hand moved to the back of her neck. Gentle, hesitant. The first kiss wasn't hungry. It was searching. A question, not an answer. His lips were warm, tasting faintly of smoke and wild mint. She felt the spark the instant they touched, the bond flaring to life, singing beneath her skin like liquid silver. When they broke apart, they both breathed like they'd surfaced from drowning. Thea whispered, I shouldn't have... Kael shook his head. Don't apologize for being alive. Her heart ached. She wanted to deny how much she wanted him, how safe he made her feel, how her wolf had stopped whimpering for the first time in months. But the truth was there, glowing between them. Dante's knock shattered the moment. A letter, he called from outside. Kael opened the door and took the scroll. The seal bore the Moonvale crest. He tore it open. His expression darkened with every word. What is it? Thea asked. Kael's voice turned sharp. A demand. Rowan wants you returned immediately. Claims the rejection was made under duress. Thea blinked. He's lying. I know. Kael crushed the letter in his fist. He threatens war if I don't send you back. Thea's hands trembled. Kael, your pack. If he attacks... Kael met her gaze, voice quiet but lethal. Let him come. Thea shook her head. You can't fight 12 packs. He smiled, feral, unbothered. I've killed alphas for less. That night, Thea lay awake, staring at the ceiling, torn between terror and guilt. She couldn't bear to see him bleed for her. So, before dawn, she made a choice. She dressed quietly, wrapped herself in Kael's cloak, and stepped into the cold. The forest loomed dark and endless, but she didn't hesitate. If returning to Moonvale meant saving them, then she would go. She was almost at the border when she heard him behind her. Where are you going? His voice was calm, but beneath it, something primal simmered. Thea turned, heartbreaking. I can't let them die for me. You said I could leave when I was ready. Kael took a slow step forward. And you believed me? Tears filled her eyes. You said I lied. His voice dropped, rough, dangerous. You're not going back to him. Not now. Not ever. She tried to speak, but he closed the distance between them in 2 strides. His hand found her jaw, tilting her face up until their eyes locked. He had his chance. He threw you away. His voice was a growl now, low and trembling with restraint. If Rowan wants war, he'll get it. But he'll never get you. The forest went still. Thea's breath shook, caught between fear and something deeper, something fierce that had nothing to do with terror. Because in that moment she knew. The rogue king wasn't fighting to own her. He was fighting to protect what he already considered his. Dawn broke gray and iron cold over the northern wastes. Frost clung to the timber walls, and the breath of every wolf rose in pale ghosts above the snow. When the first horns sounded across the ridge, the ground itself seemed to tighten. They came in rows, banners of 12 allied packs unfurling like storm clouds. Armor gleamed. Boots struck the ice in measured thunder. At the front rode Rowan Ashford, gold and perfect and hollow, a man who had traded truth for spectacle. Behind him, Alpha Tobias watched like a general counting casualties that weren't his. Inside the compound, the Blood Moon rogues moved with practiced calm. No panic, no begging. They strapped bracers, checked blades, tightened bowstrings. Children were ushered below ground with a kiss to the forehead and a quiet promise. We come back. Ria's scar shone silver as she passed Thea a dagger. For the hand that shakes but does not break, she said. Thea's fingers closed around the hilt. It was warm from Ria's palm. Her leg ached, a weather bone remembering old storms, but she stood straight. She wasn't the kitchen shadow anymore. She wasn't the girl who'd learned to swallow shame until it tasted normal. She was the wolf who had been carried from the dirt and taught to breathe again. Kael stepped onto the snow-packed yard, coat undone, throat bare to the cold, as if daring the day to bite him. His eyes, one amber, one winter blue, found Thea first. Something inside them softened and sharpened all at once. Stay close to the inner line, he said. Thea shook her head. No hiding. A muscle jumped in his jaw. Then behind me. Beside you, she countered. He didn't argue again. He just nodded, as if the word beside had settled into a place he'd kept empty for too long. They walked to the outer gate together, the rogue pack fanning out in a crescent behind them. The gate swung open with a groan. Cold flooded in. Silence fell like a verdict. Rowan lifted a loudhailer, voice smooth as ever. Kael Thorne, you are harboring stolen property. Return Thea Winters to Moonvale, and no blood need be spilled. The word property slid through the air like a blade meant for soft places. Thea felt every gaze tilt toward her. She tasted iron and old humiliation. Then she stepped forward. No, she said. No amplifier, no speechcraft. Just a single syllable that rang truer than any banner. Rowan lowered the horn. Surprise flashed, then calculation. You're confused, Thea. He's manipulated you. Come home. We can address the past. The past? Thea's laugh was small and clean. You made it public. You made it permanent. I begged the air for mercy while you kissed someone else 5 feet away. She took another step, cloak snapping in the wind. You taught me what home is not. They taught me what it might be. A ripple moved through the rogues, pride held on a leash. Kael didn't touch her, but every line of him leaned toward the urge. Rowan's mouth flattened. Then I challenge, by ancient right, trial of alphas. Winner claims the contested wolf. Kael's growl was low thunder, not quite human. Thea felt it in bone and blood. She turned to him, fingers catching the edge of his coat. "Don't fight for ownership," she said softly. "Fight for truth." His gaze steadied. In it, the storm calmed by a fraction. "Always," he said. The circle was cut in the snow with the point of a spear. Wide, clean, no room for witnesses inside it. Wolves ringed the perimeter at a respectful distance. The moon priestess was not here. The sky would be judge enough. "Terms," Kael said. "No killing," Thea said before Rowan could answer. Her voice shocked even her. "Win clean. Walk away." Rowan sneered. "Mercy from a crippled wolf?" Kael's head turned slow and lethal. "Agreed," he said to Thea, ignoring Rowan entirely. "No killing." Cloaks dropped. Breath ghosted. The change tore through both men in flashes of heat and sound. Bones shifting, muscle rippling, skin giving way to fur. Rowan's wolf came on bright and large, pelt like new coin, eyes sharp with practiced arrogance. Kael became shadow, havoc rising monstrous and silent, black fur swallowing light, mismatched eyes burning. They circled. Snow hissed under paws. The first clash was speed. Rowan darted left, teeth catching Havoc's shoulder. Blood beaded red on black. He pulled back fast, smug. Havoc didn't shake. He turned a quiet pivot and drove forward with the force of a falling tree. Rowan skidded, corrected, lunged for the throat. Havoc let the bite scrape fur and not skin, then punished the overreach, shoulder to rib, rib to ice. The golden wolf hit hard enough to knock steam from his mouth. Roars rolled over the ridgeline. Thea didn't flinch. She watched the feet. The weight shifts, the breath lengths. Training with Rhea had taught her where fear hides. Rowan was technique and show. Havoc was pressure and patience. Cuts bloomed on Kyle's flank. He accepted them, traded space for timing. When Rowan sprinted in a brilliant feint, Havoc didn't chase the invitation. He pivoted again, caught the foreleg at the joint, and twisted just enough to remind Bone what humility is. Rowan stumbled. It was small. It was everything. He panicked, went high for the kill position, teeth flashing. Havoc rose with him, met the leap, and drove him down. Snow exploded. Silence followed, pure and absolute, as Havoc's jaws closed at Rowan's throat. Not piercing, holding. A promise over a pulse. Across the circle, Tobias flinched and looked away. Thea stepped to the edge, heart a drum. "Kael," she said, voice steady. Havoc's ears flicked. The bond pulsed once, silver through the dark. "Don't become him," Thea said. For a long breath, nothing moved. Then Havoc loosened his grip, slow as sunrise. He stepped back, massive chest heaving, eyes never leaving the golden wolf who had defined her worst night. Rowan staggered to his paws, humiliation shaking him worse than pain. He shifted back in an angry blur, skin pale against the brutal cold. "This isn't over," he spat. "It is," Thea said quietly. "You ended it the night you said I was nothing." Rowan looked at her, really looked, as if seeing the absence of what he once held in his fist. No plea lived in her eyes. No apology waited on her tongue. Only a calm he could not command. Tobias spoke first, practical as a tally sheet. "We withdraw," he said, voice gravel. "For now." Banners dipped, lines turned. The army that had arrived like a blizzard receded, like bad weather losing interest. Silence didn't return so much as reveal itself, present all along beneath threat and noise. The rogues exhaled. Rhea whooped once, sharp and bright. Dante laughed a single relieved breath, and then wiped his face like he hadn't. Children peeked from the bunker stair with wide eyes and wider smiles. Kael shifted slowly, the change dragging across wounds. He stood human and bleeding, snow steaming off hot skin. Thea went to him, hands sure, eyes fierce. You held back, she said. You asked, he answered, as if that explained everything. She touched the cut on his shoulder, light as a vow. You could have ended him. I chose you instead, he said. The words landed somewhere deeper than bone. Thea's chest ached. The good kind, the kind that meant a cage had been opened from the inside. Around them, the pack celebrated in the quiet way of wolves who have buried too many and are grateful today not to add another name. Kael swayed. Thea caught him before pride could. Rhea pressed cloth to wounds. Dante barked orders that sounded suspiciously like blessings. As they moved back toward the compound, Thea looked once over her shoulder. Far off, Rowan became a small figure against a pale horizon, retreating into the story he'd written for himself and could no longer make anyone else believe. The wind shifted. Somewhere behind her ribs, Ember lifted her head, unafraid. Beside her, Kael breathed in and out, heavy but alive. The battle for the wastes was over. The war for her life had been won a different way, by choosing mercy when cruelty begged to be fed, by standing beside a wolf who understood that power without restraint is just another name for emptiness. And in the hush after victory, Thea realized something so simple it felt like revelation. She did not belong to anyone. She chose, and she had chosen him. The battle ended at sunrise. By the time the last fires died down, the snow around the yard had turned pink where Kael's blood had met it. Thea moved through the wreckage like a ghost with a heartbeat, steady, deliberate, unwilling to let fear write the next line of her story. Inside the main lodge, the air was warm, thick with smoke and herbs. Kael sat on the edge of a table while Rhea stitched the worst of his wounds. He didn't flinch. His eyes, mismatched and unyielding, stayed fixed on Thea as if she were the only thing anchoring him to this world. When Rhea finished and left them, silence filled the space. Thea knelt in front of him, a bowl of warm water between them. Her hands shook as she dipped the cloth, wrung it out, and touched the cut across his chest. You could have died, she whispered. Kael's voice came low, rough. Worth it. She looked up sharply. Why would you risk everything for me? Because you're not a risk, he said. You're a reason. Thea's breath caught. The words hit a place inside her that had only ever known emptiness. She pressed the cloth to another wound, slower this time, tracing the edge of a scar that wasn't new. He didn't pull away. Does it hurt? She asked. He smiled faintly. Not as much as watching you walk toward him would have. Her throat tightened. You're supposed to be the monster, she murmured. But you're the only one who ever fought to keep me breathing. Kael reached for her hand, catching it mid-air. I am a monster, he said softly. Just not to you. The moment stretched. The fire snapped. Outside, the wind carried the faint sound of wolves howling victory to the dawn. Thea felt something inside her uncoil, the last thread of fear that had held her back since the ceremony. She set the cloth down and met his gaze. You once said I could leave when I was strong enough. I remember. I'm still here. Kael's jaw tightened. Are you telling me to let you go? No, she said. I'm telling you I'm staying because I choose to. For the first time, his composure cracked. The breath he drew trembled. You're sure? Thea nodded. The goddess gave me 2 mates. One to break me, one to show me how to rebuild. She stepped closer until she could feel the heat of his body, the slow, steady rhythm of his heart. I choose the one who stayed when the world turned away. Kael stood, towering but careful, as if afraid she might vanish if he moved too fast. Then let's make it real, he said. That night, the Blood Moon pack gathered under a full moon that blazed like a crown above them. The snow had stopped, leaving the sky clear and silver. The moon priestess who served the rogues, younger, gentler than the one from Moonvale, stood between them with a bowl of sacred ash and a smile that reached her eyes. "The goddess rethreads what pride unravels," she said. "Tonight we witness the weaving." Kael wore black, simple and unadorned. Thea wore white again, but this time it wasn't shame. It was light. They faced each other in the center of the circle, palms touching. The silver threads of their bond glowed between them, alive and pulsing like shared breath. "Do you accept the bond freely?" the priestess asked. "I do," Kael said. "I do," Thea whispered. The priestess nodded. "Then mark each other and be one in the eyes of the moon." Kael bent his head, brushing his lips against the hollow of Thea's neck before his teeth broke skin. Not cruelly, but reverently. Thea gasped. Warmth spread through her veins like light spilling into every dark corner. The scent of cedar and snow filled her lungs. When she lifted her head, her eyes shone silver. She pressed her mouth to his shoulder, marking him in return. For a moment the world glowed. The moon seemed to pulse brighter, as though blessing them both. Thea's wolf, Ember, rose within her, stronger, louder than ever before. Pain lanced through her leg, the old twisted one, but instead of agony came heat, then release. Bone shifted, realigned. The pain vanished. She looked down, her leg was straight, whole. Her wolf had healed her. The pack gasped. The priestess dropped to her knees. "The moon's favor," she breathed. "She's blessed." Thea laughed, the sound breaking free like a song too long caged. She ran, barefoot through the snow, and didn't fall once. Kael followed, catching her mid-turn, spinning her until her laughter echoed off the mountains. He held her close, breath warm against her ear. "You were never broken," he whispered, "just waiting to become." When their lips met, the world went quiet. Not with the hush of fear, but the peace that follows a storm finally spent. The pack howled in celebration, voices carrying into the night. Later, as the fire burned low and the others drifted away, Kael and Thea stood alone beneath the silver sky. He traced a thumb along the mark at her throat. She touched the one on his shoulder. Their bond pulsed steady between them. A living promise. "You're mine," he said, not as a claim, but as a vow. "And you're mine," she answered. They didn't speak again. Words would have only dimmed what the silence already knew, that two wolves who had lost everything had found each other, not by destiny's design, but by choosing to stay when running would have been easier. The fire crackled once more, sending sparks upward to join the stars, and the moon hung witness to a truth older than any law, that love, real love, doesn't fix the broken. It teaches the broken how to run again. 6 months later, winter had softened its grip on the northern wastes. The snows were still deep, but the wind carried promise instead of warning. Thea Winters, once the runt of Moonvale, now stood on the balcony of the Blood Moon stronghold, the dawn light turning her silver hair to frost and fire. She was no longer the girl who flinched from whispers. She was Luna, the queen of rogues, chosen, not crowned. Below, the pack stirred awake. Wolves trained in the yard, laughter rolling across the cold air. A sanctuary now thrived where fear had once lived. Here, every wolf had a story, the wounded, the exiled, the forgotten. Thea knew each of their names. She'd built this place for them, for all the souls who'd been told they were too broken to belong. Kael approached quietly behind her, wrapping an arm around her waist. His scent, cedar, smoke, snow, filled the air. She leaned into him without hesitation. "Look at them," he said softly. "A pack no one wanted, stronger than any that remain." Thea smiled, because they learned what Moonvale never did. Power isn't in perfection, it's in compassion. Kael kissed her temple. "And that's why they follow you." A small flutter beneath her ribs made her pause, the gentle, rhythmic pulse of new life. Their child, their miracle. Her hand rested over her belly. Kael's followed. His voice dropped to a whisper. Our future. Thea nodded. One we fought for. Far to the south, rumors whispered of Moonvale's fall. Rowan had vanished into exile. His father's name had become a curse. None of it mattered anymore. Thea didn't need revenge. She'd already rewritten her ending. She stepped forward to the edge of the balcony, watching the sunlight spill across the frozen valley. Once I thought being broken made me weak, she murmured. Now I know. It made me brave. Kael's arms tightened around her. You were never broken, Thea. You were becoming. She smiled, the kind of smile that carried history and forgiveness in equal measure. Below, the pack began to howl. One voice at first, then many, a chorus that rose to meet the morning. Thea tilted her head back and joined them, her voice strong and clear, echoing into the horizon. For the first time in her life, she didn't howl for belonging. She howled for victory, for freedom, for every heart that had ever been told it wasn't enough. And when Kael's deeper howl rose to meet hers, it wasn't a claim. It was a vow that together they would rule not through fear, but through the kind of love the world still didn't understand. The Queen of Rogues had risen, and this time no one would ever silence her again.